They immediately believed the Sikh man's lie.
20-word rewritten version that commentator just spent 7 minutes exposing Kamala's troubled 2-year record, and the criticism only becomes even more damaging afterward.
Put out this thing that this sort of Welsh choir boy had gone crazy in Southport. And, it was just incredibly dishonest.
Wait until you hear what he claims officials knew when they knew it, and why he believes those decisions had lasting consequences. He argues this goes far beyond criticizing a single administration, describing what he sees as a pattern that has continued for years and ultimately carried a devastating human cost. Before we continue, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone interested in this debate. Now, let's return to where the story began.
That Keir Starmer will be resigning as Prime Minister. I guess let's just start out with, what do you feel his legacy will be?
Non-existent, really. There's nothing much. You know, the oddity of the British system is we have this, obviously my country of birth, we have this system in the UK, first past the post, which is meant to, it has certain downsides, but it's meant to deliver clear mandates from the people in each electoral seat, and therefore with governments. The argument against proportional representation has always been that first past the post means we don't have unstable coalition governments like, say, Italy. Now, for the last 15-16 years, Britain's been in this very strange position of having our usual system of first past the post and a sort of coalition politics. The 2010 there was a coalition between the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats. Theresa May ran a minority government in 2017, supported by the Ulster Unionists. Keir Starmer got a mandate from the country of a kind in 2024, but really the mandate, although it was a very large majority, was incredibly thin in terms of popularity. It was simply an election in which the British public said they wanted the Conservatives out of office. After 14 years of Conservative Party rule, in which, particularly in the last few years, Conservatives seemed to think that there was an endless appetite in the country for Conservative leadership elections. That is where the tiny number of people who are members of a political party vote for their party leader, who then, if you're in power, becomes Prime Minister. And that's how we got, in a short number of years, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss for a month, Rishi Sunak, and the public had just had enough. The Conservative Party obviously needed the time on the back benches, on the opposition benches. So Starmer came in with there was no love for him in the country. It wasn't like 1997 when Tony Blair really did come in with an enormous wave of enthusiasm, as well as a desire to kick the Conservatives out after a similar sort of period of stagnation in Conservative rule. So unlike Blair, Starmer came in with no particular popularity and with no particular program. I mean, he studiously in the election campaign avoided saying anything much that he was going to do. And then he succeeded in not doing very much. I don't think history will really remember him. There's a few things. I mean, he continued British support for Ukraine. That's sort of been a happy place in a way, strangely to say, for British Prime Ministers since the war began. It gives them a feeling of grandstanding on the world stage. But other than that, you know, he's tinkered with some social media laws and so on. If he's remembered at all, it'll probably be for badly misjudging the public mood from the moment of the Southport stabbings onward.
To be fair, he acknowledges that no politician can be held responsible for the actions of a single individual. However, he insists his criticism is directed elsewhere. His focus is on how the government responded afterward, raising questions about transparency, accountability, and whether the public had enough reason to trust the official version of events.
Which was really only a few weeks after he entered office, and deciding that instead of dealing with any problems that existed in the country, he should clamp down on and prosecute and suppress the opinions of people who didn't like the bad things that were happening.
And can you remind people the details of that stabbing?
Yeah, that was when a young man called Axel Rudapkanu, who was a child of Rwandan immigrants to the UK, went into a Taylor Swift-themed dance party of young girls in a place called Southport, which would ordinarily be a sort of Labour heartland. I sort of started stabbing all these young girls and killed 3 of them in really brutal circumstances. These things happen, and what you sort of can't blame a politician for the actions of a lone madman, but you can judge a lot by their response. And the response of the Starmer government was to try to cover up, and they knew within 24 hours who the guy was, that he'd been downloading Al-Qaeda manuals, tried to make ricin, and all sorts of things which the public deserved to know. And the police and the government put out this thing that this sort of Welsh choir boy had gone crazy in Southport. And it was just incredibly dishonest. Now, there was rioting and terrible unrest for a period after that, and that's obviously terrible. In those situations, you do have to be careful about what you say as a politician. Mm-hmm. But really what the public got from Starmer was, you, the public, are the problem. Mm-hmm. And that sort of continued really for the remaining 2 years he was in office. I'm afraid that Britain, like a lot of countries, is not very good at dealing with its problems. It has this habit of addressing secondary issues. It has this habit of always focusing on what one person has said in response to the issue, things like that, and that's and a total inability to address real societal problems. I suppose that most recently came to a head as well with the trial of the killing of a young man called Henry Novak, who was killed by a Sikh man who totally falsely accused Henry Novak, who he'd stabbed on the streets, of having said something racist to him. And when the police arrived, it turned out that they arrested the victim, mm-hmm. Who had been stabbed repeatedly.
Because they immediately believed the Sikh man's lie.
Yes, and the Sikh man's family also involved themselves in the attempt to cover up the crime. The fact that the police had been trained, and this is something that happened under Conservative as well as Labour governments, but the fact they'd been trained to regard the accusation of racism as being, as it were, even more serious than the claim by a young man dying out on the streets he'd been stabbed. Mm-hmm. And the body cam footage showed that one of the police officers said to him, I don't think you have, mate. Somebody who's been stabbed to the chest and the face and so on, it's pretty obvious. And to handcuff a young man in that situation, and for his dying moments to have him being read his rights. Strangely enough, these cases, you can't blame the case on a single politician. Individual people do individually terrible things sometimes, but the response to it again was clearly one of Starmer completely misreading the country. There's a lot of anger in Britain, a lot of anger, as in most European countries, and there's just there was no attempt by Starmer or his government to really understand public anger about things like that.
The media may have presented the story differently, but the debate continues. What do you think was the government's biggest failure, or was there another decision with greater consequences? Share your opinion in the comments. The most thoughtful response will be pinned. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.